Hi there, my name is Heath Robson and I'm going to talk to you about some of the ethical considerations around buying and selling human organs. I'll do this by discussing some arguments for and against. These are outlined in greater detail in The Moral Limits of Markets, The Case of Human Kidneys by Debra Satz, and Selling Organs, Gametes and Surrogacy Services by Janet Radcliffe Richards. All full references are listed in the description below. In Australia, around 1,500 people can be on an organ waitlist at any one time. Information from Donate Life, a website run by the government, shows a snapshot of these figures from November 2014. Unfortunately, many people on the waitlist will pass away before a transplant can be found. Some believe that should we adopt a market approach to buying and selling organs, many of these deaths could be avoided. However, others are against this idea. Let's have a look at the issues. When we have one person that wants to buy a good and another that has this good and is willing to sell it, a transaction takes place. As this continues, we end up with multiple buyers and multiple sellers, and a market is created. This is how most of the goods and services we have are sold, in a marketplace. Organs and body parts are different and do not follow this system. This is because in most countries it's illegal to buy and sell organs. Currently, organs can only be altruistically donated. Because of this, we have high demand for organs, yet low supply. For those who need an organ, it is a matter of life or death. Yet there is little that can be done but wait and hope that an organ will be found. Some argue that by allowing organs to be bought and sold in a market-like environment, avoidable deaths would be reduced and lives would be saved. However, this view isn't held by everyone. In 1971, Richard Titmuss compared two systems of a bodily product, blood, in different countries. System 1 in the UK was altruistic and relied on blood donations. System 2 in the US purchased blood from those willing to sell. He argued that the altruistic system was superior as it resulted in a higher quality product. As in the market system, those who wished to sell their blood would gain from hiding any illness or behaviours that would make them ineligible to sell. When you have an altruistic system, there are no incentives to withhold or hide information. However, others see that arguments to prohibit the activity based on potential issues of supply or quality are not persuasive enough on their own, and the effect on a market is difficult to gauge through conjecture. The potential harms and benefits should be carefully weighed before simply ruling out a market approach. Titmuss further posited that if a market system were to be introduced, those who would have previously been willing to donate would not be willing to sell. By attaching a monetary price to the act, the spirit of giving has been removed and the good can now be purchased. But this is difficult to quantify. Another concern is that creating an organ market would only increase inequality. Let's for the moment imagine that it is legal to sell your kidney. Who would be the most likely to sell their kidney, and who would be the most likely to buy? All things considered, selling a kidney is more likely to be an action of last resort, and the people most likely to need a last resort are the poor, desperate, and disadvantaged. The poor would be selling, and there's a high chance the rich would be buying. An organ market would only transfer organs from the poor to the rich, from the third world to the first world, and from minority to white. Yet, inequality in these comparison sets already exists, and the problem may not actually be organ selling, but inequality itself. In this case, an organ market is simply acting like a mirror, and reflecting the inequalities that already exist. Others argue that allowing organ trade may actually be in the best interests of the poor, by allowing them to capitalize on a good that is in high demand no matter the risk. And we do not prohibit an action simply because it's risky. For example, we still allow people to engage in extreme sports and we even televise them. The risk to their health is high, yet it is accepted in exchange for the personal benefit that they will receive, such as fulfillment, fame, and even money. Now, you may agree with this practice and say, as long as the choice is freely made, it should be allowed. But knowing if a choice has been freely made can be problematic. In our society, if a choice is freely made, we tend to endorse it or at least not interfere, even if that choice is not ideal. Let's imagine a person in a minimum wage job. This job isn't their first choice. It is physically and mentally demanding, involves very long hours for very little pay, and they are treated poorly by the organisation. They are in a situation many would not welcome, yet each day they choose to return. We as a society recognise this situation is not ideal, yet we do not interfere because we see their choices as genuine, freely made, and not coerced. Whereas, in the case of kidney selling, the fear is that those poverty-stricken may be coerced into it by the lure of money, and to some, a coerced choice is not genuine, therefore it should be prohibited. However, others argue that even a coerced choice can still be genuine. Here's another example. Now, let's imagine a parent's child has been kidnapped. The kidnappers are demanding a ransom. If it isn't received, the child will be killed. The parent chooses to pay the ransom. While this choice has been coerced, we cannot say it wasn't voluntarily made. We could also argue that if another person were to prevent the parent paying the ransom, resulting in the death of the child, the parent would have preferred to have paid it. This decision has still been coerced, but it is genuine in the sense that it was made in preference to an alternative. While we can argue that a choice was made, we can still wonder if someone has been taken advantage of and if it was wrong to do so in this case. As so commonly happens in our world, the poor can become a means to an end for the rich to get further advantage, and it can seem that an inevitable choice has been made from limited options. But this view can also be applied to altruistic donations. Consider this. An individual is faced with the option of donating a kidney or allowing a relative to die. Two options are available, but they may feel like, at the end of the day, they can really only make one, to donate their kidney. There is a similarity here to our kidnapping situation. The individual chooses the action they may not want to do, but they will do it to avoid harm to a loved one. But perhaps, even if a choice has been made, people may not realise what they are agreeing to, and the poor, or anyone who would choose to sell an organ, have only consented due to lack of understanding or the consequences of their decision. Weak agency refers to an agent who is either ignorant of the consequences of his actions or is not directly involved in the transaction, but relies on another person to transact on his behalf. Some would argue that due to advances, the danger of having a single kidney removed is severely reduced. Surgeries are completed with minimal complications and the seller or donator still has one functioning kidney. While this may be the case in a developed country, it does not apply in every setting. Interestingly, a study in India that interviewed people who had sold their kidneys found that 87% of respondents reported a marked deterioration in their health following kidney removal. A significant contributor to this is reduced access to healthcare services, higher on average health risks, and a lower quality of care. Furthermore, should their remaining kidney fail, there are reduced options available to access a replacement. Also, 79% of the people interviewed regretted their decision and would not recommend it to others. In this case in India, weak agency was a serious problem, which shows how desperation can lead to exploitation. While the evidence presented shows that the people interviewed regretted their decision, it does not necessarily follow that they were incompetent to consent. To draw a comparison with the current system, there is no argument that altruistic organ donation in developing nations should be prohibited, yet the same risks discussed before, ongoing health and satisfaction with their decision, remain. If we are to accept that the person can be competent to decide for altruistic reasons, then it should also follow that they can be competent to make that decision for monetary reasons. While fears of inequality in some settings remain, at the end of the day, it is possible that allowing organs to be traded may result in actual lives being saved. Being able to sell their organs may give the poor access to funds they desperately need, some reasons of which may be altruistic, such as paying for medical care for a loved one. From the cases that we've examined, the main issue seems to not be related to the act of selling an organ, but rather the protection of vulnerable people. Now, while a free-for-all policy may not be suitable, that doesn't mean that government intervention can't be designed in a way that allows us to maximise the benefits while minimising any potential harm. Allowing some organs to be sold in some situations could lead to saving lives. That on its own should be enough for the idea to be given serious consideration. So, what do you think? Is there a way that an organ market could be ethically regulated? Or does the idea of selling organs just feel wrong to you? Should it be prohibited for other reasons that aren't market related? Do we even have the right to sell our body parts? Let me know what you think in the comments below. And thank you for listening.